Initially believed to be the stuff of legend, people were shocked upon discovering that these next 6 creatures actually exist in real life. Number 6. Okapi. The European exploration of Africa was already in full swing near the end of the 19th century. In the densely forested interior of the continent, explorers began hearing tales of a creature that the locals called the Okapi, or the Ati. Its appearance was described as a mixture of features from the giraffe, donkey, and zebra. The creature was said to be extremely shy and sightings were very rare. The first accounts of the Ati were given by explorer Sir Henry Morton Stanley in 1871. He had been sent in the Congo in search of the missing Dr. David Livingstone. Stanley was successful in his quest, famously uttering the line, "Dr. Livingstone, I presume." During his exploration of the Congo, Stanley had heard tales of the Ati, described as a large horse with a long and flexible neck, a long tongue, striped flanks, and a horned head. Stanley did not find any physical evidence of the animal to write about in his 1890 book, In Darkest Africa. An expedition that took place in 1901 would offer the needed insight into the elusive beast. Sir Henry Johnston, the High Commissioner of Uganda, embarked on the expedition into what was then the Belgian Congo with the purpose of returning some native pygmies who had been kidnapped from their homeland. Upon his return, the pygmies told him stories about the Ati. The expedition stopped at a military garrison named Fort Mbeni, where Johnston acquired 2 bandoliers that the soldiers told him were made from the Okapi hide. Before he left the outpost, the soldiers promised to send him more proof of the animal's existence if they were to come across it. He tried to track down a live specimen, but had to turn back as most of the members of his exploration party had become ill. In 1901, he received 2 full Okapi skins and a skull from the outpost. He sent them to London along with watercolor illustrations of the animal, which he correctly suspected was more related to a giraffine species than to a horse or antelope. His findings were displayed during a meeting of the London Zoological Society. After a live specimen was finally captured, the creature was named Okapia johnstoni in honor of the explorer who discovered it. Number 5. The spot-bellied owl. The ulama, or devil bird, is a creature described in Sri Lankan folklore as a frightening horned bird. The devil bird was rarely seen, but it would often make its presence felt through its infamous blood-curdling screams. Its cries are described as bearing a resemblance to those of a wailing woman. In most legends, the devil bird was a person in anguish who fled into a field clutching their head with one hand. Locals perceived its cries as an omen of death. For centuries, the creature's nocturnal shrieks were the only evidence of its existence, and the Western scientific community dismissed the reports as superstition. However, in 2001, a new species of owl named Bubo nipalensis, also known as the spot-bellied owl, was discovered, and many believed it to be the mythical devil bird, as it had many of the same features, including the tuft horns and the legendary shriek. Other contenders to the true identity of the ulama include the oriental honey buzzard and the changeable hawk eagle, but so far, most people consider the spot-bellied owl to be the closest match. Number 4. Cuvier's beaked whale. In medieval folklore, the water owl, or Xiphias, was a legendary nautical monster that was said to lurk in the depths of the northern seas and attack ships. It was described as a creature with the head of an owl, complete with a wedge-shaped beak and massive eyes and the body of a fish. In Latin, Xiphias means sword-like and could have possibly referred to the creature's fin, which was believed to pierce and cut through the hulls of ships just like a sword. A theory among naturalists is that Cuvier's beaked whale, also known as the goose-beaked whale, is the creature that inspired the myth of the Xiphias. French anatomist Georges Cuvier first described this whale species in 1823 based on an imperfect skull recovered from France's Mediterranean coast. He named it Xiphias cavirostris, as he believed it to be related to the mythical monster. Cavirostris is derived from the Latin word cavus, which may be translated as concave or hollow, and it was used to describe the prenarial basin in the skull, a deep hollow that is the common trait of beaked whale species. These toothed whales can range in length from 16 to 23 feet and typically weigh approximately 5,500 pounds. They have a cosmopolitan distribution, inhabiting the deep offshore waters of cool and temperate as well as tropical seas. In 2011, a Cuvier's beaked whale was monitored as it dove to a depth of 9,816 feet, which is the deepest dive ever recorded by a mammal. Number 3. The Komodo dragon. Varanus komodensis, also known as the Komodo dragon, is a large lizard species that inhabits the Indonesian islands of Komodo, Flores, Rinca, Padar, and Gili Matang. It has sharp claws, a massive frame, and formidable fangs. This creature can exceed lengths of 9 feet, and it can weigh up to 150 pounds. For a long time, the Komodo dragon was believed to be nothing more than a product of local myth and folklore. Even though the islanders were familiar with these massive lizards and called them land crocodiles, the scientific community met any reports of their existence with great skepticism. It was difficult for people at that time to believe that such creatures were real, as the idea of terrestrial lizards of such proportions reminded them too much of the dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures that were long extinct. In 1912, an expedition led by Peter Owens from the Buitenzorg Zoological Museum in Java produced reports, photographs, and a skin of the legendary dragon, but skepticism and the coming of World War I eclipsed the findings. After the war, W. Douglas Burden, a naturalist and zoologist from the American Museum of Natural History, began to take an interest in the tales about the monstrous lizards. He organized an expedition to search for them in 1926. It was a resounding success, as 2 live specimens and 12 preserved ones were discovered. The Komodo dragons were first introduced to the general public in 1927, when live specimens were displayed in the Reptile House at the London Zoo. Number 2. The platypus. Ornithorhynchus anatinus, also known as the duck-billed platypus or just simply the platypus, is undoubtedly one of the most bizarre creatures found in the animal world. Located in eastern Australia, the platypus is one of the only 5 species of monotremes. These are mammals that lay eggs instead of bearing live young. The platypus's odd features offer a glimpse into why 18th century European explorers believed its existence to be an aboriginal myth. Its flattened tail resembles that of a beaver. It has a duck-like bill, otter-like feet, and the males have venomous spurs, making the platypus one of a very limited number of venomous mammals. Even though this animal was completely unknown to the outside world, the Aborigines were familiar with it and they often hunted it. They believed that the platypus was created through the mating of a water rat and a duck. The stories that European explorers had heard about this creature were regarded with great skepticism, and many doubted its existence. After the British Empire established a colony in Australia in 1788, early colonists called these mammals water moles, duckbills, or duck moles, yet the majority of naturalists still dismiss the stories. The second governor of New South Wales, Captain John Hunter, sent a sketch of the animal along with a pelt that he had purchased back to Great Britain. The scientific community believed the animal to be part of an elaborate hoax. The historical context in which people tried to prove its existence was not favorable either, as mythical creatures and false discoveries were often produced at the time. Zoologist George Shaw considered the platypus to be a product of the trend and decided to cut a specimen open with scissors, suspecting that the animal had been sewn together. This would begin a process that lasted almost a century, during which zoologists would slowly come to grips with the fact that the strange creature was real. Some viewed as a missing link between reptiles and animals. The fact that it laid eggs as well as suckled its young is the concept that most defied the paradigm of the time. A significant number of naturalists went into the field with the purpose of debunking the myth that the platypus laid eggs. They hoped to find a specimen that would have a fully formed embryo in its utero, thus disproving the notion that an egg was produced. Naturally, such a discovery never took place, and the scientific community eventually overcame the entrenched paradigms and prejudices of the time. Number 1. Giant squids. Stories of encounters with maritime monsters have been circulating around mariners since time unremembered. These include creatures like mermaids and sea serpents, but no other story could send chills down the spines of sailors as much as that of the legendary Kraken. The enormous tentacled monster was said to be very aggressive and prone to attacking ships. It was described as being much larger than a ship and even as large as an island. Even though throughout the years, partial carcasses would be washed ashore, they decomposed before marine wildlife experts could analyze it and remove the giant squid from the realm of myth. In the 1840s, Danish zoologist Johan Japetus Steensup managed to get a close-up look at a beach specimen after years of collecting sighting reports about giant squids. He named the specimen Architeuthis. Steensup's peers, however, were still skeptical and largely dismissed his reports on the carcass. As time passed, more giant squid specimens were found washed ashore and the skepticism slowly faded away. Nowadays, we know that the existence of the giant squid squid is scientific fact, and that it is an elusive creature found in the depths of the ocean that can grow to lengths of over 43 feet. The colossal squid is an even larger species that can grow to over 46 feet in length and weigh up to and over 1,650 pounds, making it the largest known invertebrate. Unlike the giant squid and more like the mythical kraken, the colossal squid also has sharp hooks on its limbs, some of them swiveling and others three-pointed. It also has a larger and stouter body than the giant squids, and its eyes are essentially the size of dinner plates, measuring up to 16 inches in diameter. They are the largest eyes that have ever been documented in the animal world. The colossal squid and giant squid have the potential of growing to enormous proportions due to abysmal gigantism, a condition determined by the pressure and temperature of their deep-sea environment. When considering how vastly unexplored our oceans truly are, the existence of monsters and creatures that are seen as mythical can never be completely ruled out, and the giant squid and colossal squid are among the best examples of myths essentially coming to life.